guys, so it's me, Caitlin, and why is this the first shot? Hey guys, I'm Caitlin, and welcome back to another episode of Grace Talk. I know that we are in a new scenery today. That is because I was standing there at my window and I was thinking, you know what, it's a pretty day, so let's go film outside. I don't know how this is going to end up. I already got attacked by a leaf, as you saw. So, we might end up moving back inside, but for now, here we are. So, here recently, I've been hearing several very encouraging sermons, and I take a lot of notes during church. And if you want me to make a video on how I take my notes on sermons, please let me know, because I take very detailed notes. But these are some that I was just going to go over. They've been very encouraging to me, and I hope that they encourage you as well. And so I'm just going to go over a few of those. So one of my, here it comes again. Oh no. It's just going to rain leaves the whole time. It's fine. So one of my most favorite stories in the Bible is the story of Joseph. And I just really like how he resembles kind of Christ. And how his story goes along, and it's one of my favorites. And I've heard several sermons just in the past few weeks be preached on him, and I was really excited because I was like, yes, I know this story. But they've been really meaningful sermons and really deep, and they've really helped me. And so I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm going to share them with you today. I hope they're encouraging to you. What the moral of this video is going to be today is having hope in Jesus, and hope in your situations, no matter what they are. Nothing is impossible for God to handle, and nothing is too big for God to handle. And a song that we sing every year at camp is I Know God is Big Enough. And it's really interesting singing it one year and going through totally different things than the year previous or the year later, and the song always applies to whatever we're going through. And it reminds me that, you know, my God is big enough for anything that I'm going through. And so it's very encouraging to have that reminder. But sometimes we have things that kind of make us forget. We get discouraged, or we get disappointed in situations and things, and we feel defeat, and we feel division between maybe people in our church or friends or family members, and those things kind of make us give up hope in our situations. And so we need to regain that hope and know that God's going to see us through whatever situation that we're going through. And that's why one of the biggest things that I always mention is that is why God left us on this planet. It's because He did more than saved me. When He did save me, He saved me from hell. He is allowing me to go to heaven, but He did way more than that. He's keeping me. And He took me on as one of His children, and He is going to see me through whatever situations, whatever battles or storms that I'm going through. And I thought that was really interesting going through my notes, is that both sermons that I heard, the one last night and the one a few weeks ago, mentioned that. And I wrote both times that down in my notes, because that is an amazing reminder to remember that, first of all, we're here for a purpose. And second of all, and that's why He didn't take us then. And second of all, He didn't take us because He is going to help us through the finish line. So one of my favorite things that was mentioned in the sermon that I heard last night about hope and about Joseph's story is that he really focused on Joseph's dad, whose name was Israel. He focused on his viewpoint of the whole situation. When all of his brothers came back to Israel and told him that, hey, your favorite son has been killed. He had a terrible fight with an animal, and he did not survive, and they came back to tell him that, and he was brokenhearted. And what he said, I will not stop mourning Joseph's death until I die. So from the point that he found out that Joseph had apparently died until he found out that Joseph was alive again was 22 years. And in those years, he had no hope. I mean, imagine somebody coming and telling you that, one of your sons or one of your daughters or one of your family members had died, and you're in mourning for the rest of your life. Where are you going to find your hope then? But 22 years later, after, if you know the story, Joseph, after he is sold, and he ends up, interpreting the dreams, and it gets to the Pharaoh, and then the Pharaoh takes him. Hello, Leaf. The Pharaoh says, I want to see this man. I want him to interpret my dream. And so the story continues, and finally the brothers of Joseph end up in Egypt because they were in great famine, and they were looking for food, and they were looking for a blessing from the Lord of Egypt. And so they run into Joseph once again, and Joseph reveals himself as their brother. The brothers are just, of course, scared, but they're overjoyed to know that their brother is once again alive. And so he says that Joseph says he wants his whole family here. And so they go back to tell Israel, to tell the dad that his son is alive again. And after 22 years, imagine hearing those words that your son is alive after you thought he was dead the whole time. And what the preacher really touched on is the sign of hope. And if you read in your Bible, it says that Israel didn't believe his sons, that Joseph was still alive. And so when Joseph sent his brothers back, in Genesis 45 and verse 24, so he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, See that ye fall not out by the way. And linking back to the sermon that I was speaking of earlier, there's so many things that can cause us to fall out by the way. They could have gotten discouraged on their journey back to tell Israel that their brother was still alive, and they could have felt defeated, and they could have felt divided, but they had to make sure, they had a mission that they were on. They had to go back, and they had to let their father know that he is yet alive. And so the story continues, and once they get back to Israel, in verse 26, and they told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Israel. And Jacob's heart fainted because he believed them not. After 22 years, how can you believe that your son is yet alive when you knew that he was dead? And there was proof. They brought back the coat of many colors with blood all over it. There was proof that he was not alive. And they told him all the works of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, It is enough. Joseph my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. And so what that preacher in the sermon really touched on is the wagons. Once Israel saw the wagons from Egypt, he knew that his sons were telling the truth and that Joseph was alive again. And so we need to be in search of those wagons, those little shadows of hope, that we can know that everything's going to be okay. Everything is all right. And so then he continued on into the story of Ruth, and Ruth is another one of my favorites. And he continues to talk about how, Naomi was heartbroken at the death of her husband and her two sons. And when she told her daughters-in-law, to go back to their countries where they were from, Ruth stayed. She wanted to stay. She wanted to serve Naomi's God as well. At first, Naomi didn't know that it was going to end up in a marriage. She didn't know that. She just knew that she was going to go back home. And then when they got home, and Ruth said that she wanted to work in the fields, and then we all know the story, and she meets Boaz, and it's a love story from there. But when Ruth returned from tending to the fields, and she returned with the bag of barley to give to Naomi, Naomi saw that as a beacon of hope, and she knew that everything was going to end up all right. because of that bag of barley. So the moral of the whole story here is that we need to be in search of those small, tiny tidbits of hope that we can see anywhere in our lives. We need to be open and aware and paying attention to those little things of hope in our situations. No matter what our situation may be, there is always going to be hope. And if we're not careful, we'll miss those little signs. And we need those signs to know that it's going to be okay. I posted a picture today on the Grace Talk page, and it was the lyrics of the song It Is Well, which is one of my absolute favorite songs at the moment because it's just touched my heart so much. And there's a difference from, singing a song every Sunday or so and actually understanding the words and feeling the words and applying them to your life and knowing what they mean and really understanding them. And that's what I've been doing with that song. And it is just a sign of hope for me right now to know that no matter what's going on in my life, no matter the storms or the trials or whatever else the world or Satan is trying to throw my way, it is well. And it's going to end well because one day we're going to leave this world and we don't have to endure it anymore because we will be in heaven. And we don't have to deal with the things of this world anymore. We'll live there forevermore. So in the end, it will all be well. It doesn't really matter. I mean, of course, these storms that we're going through, they're huge to us, and it seems like they're overtaking our lives. But in the end, all that matters is that our security is in Jesus. It truly is, at the end of the day, it's knowing who our identity is in Christ and who we put our faith in and our trust in, knowing that He will see us through any situation there is. So that's all that I have today, and no, not all of this was from my own study. I took different sermons and put them together for this study, but I know that everything that I had written down helped me, and I knew I wanted to share it so it will help you too. And if you want me to, I can take pictures of the notes and of the verses so you can know exactly where I got all of my sources at, and you can do your own study for yourself. But I knew that this was extremely helpful for me, and I wanted to help you today. So I hope that this video was encouraging to you. I know it was a little scatterbrained and very naturey, but I hope you have a blessed day, and I will be making more videos and blog posts very soon. So if you haven't checked out any of the other videos on this channel, please do. We have a few options over here in the boxes, and also don't forget to check us out on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. I post encouraging verses and scriptures and songs pretty regularly. And don't forget to, of course, subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.